6.2 is planning, adjusting entries on a worksheet. We have two objectives. You need to be able to analyze and explain the adjustments for supplies and prepaid insurance. And you need to be able to complete the adjustments columns of a worksheet. So planning those adjustments, prepaid insurance is cash that we've paid for an expense in one fiscal period that is not used until a later period. Accrual basis of accounting is reporting income when it is earned and expenses when they are incurred. So generally accepted accounting principles, remember we call that GAAP, require the use of the accrual basis of accounting. Cash basis of accounting is reporting income when the cash is received and expenses when the cash is paid. Adjustments then are changes recorded on a worksheet to update the general ledger accounts at the end of the fiscal period. So first we're going to look at our supplies adjustment on a worksheet. So they're showing us what supplies looks like before our adjustment. When we look in our supplies account, we have a balance of $620 of supplies. However, when we actually look at what we have for supplies on hand, we see that supplies on hand, we only have $90 worth. The reason for that is because we're going to use supplies over a period of time. Now, we've never credited our supplies account, even though we've used those supplies. So our supplies are going to be going down as we use them. So when we look at the end of the month and the account says that we have $620 of supplies, that is not correct. And that's why we need to make that adjustment. So to make that adjustment, we're going to look at what is recorded in that account. And then we're going to look at what should that account be. So it was 620, it should be 90. We're going to subtract those two numbers, and that tells us that we need to adjust that account by $530. We need to credit that account for $530. If we have a credit, remember we have to have a debit. So in this case, we're going to debit this expense account for supplies. It's an expense of doing business. So our supplies expense means we've used $530 worth of supplies. Now, when we put that onto our worksheet, we filled in 6.1 this trial balance column, and now we're filling in these adjustment columns, the next two columns. So here we see on our trial balance that supplies was 620. We are crediting that account, so we're going to put that credit of 530 in the adjustment column. Now, the reason that they label this as A is so that we can keep our adjustments together. And so we have our credit, and then we're going to label our debit of 530 to our supplies expense. We're going to label that also with an A. So here they're just saying we're going to write in our debit amount into the adjustments debit column, and then we're going to write our credit amount into our credit column. Next one we're going to look at is our prepaid insurance adjustment. Same thing, when we look at prepaid insurance, it shows that we have $900 worth of insurance. However, through that fiscal period, we've used insurance. So what we see is that we should have that equal to $750. We're going to take what it was minus what it should be. That gives us this adjustment amount of $150. To credit that account at $150, that would then bring our prepaid insurance down to $750, what it should be. If we credit prepaid insurance, we have to have a debit. So we're going to debit our expense account for $150, showing that we've used $150 worth of insurance. That's an expense of doing business. Again, we're going to put that into our adjustment columns. So we're going to put in our debit. We add that debit to insurance expense. We also have a credit then to our prepaid insurance. We're going to label this one as B so that those we can see what adjustments go together, what debit and credit go together. Now we're going to prove the adjustment columns just like we did with our trial balance. So we're going to single line rule. That single line rule means that we're going to add up our two columns. We're then going to add up our debit column of our adjustments, and our credit column of our adjustments. We're going to write in those totals. When we see that our debit equals our credit, we then are going to put a double line rule across showing that those are equal. Number one, again, remember I want you to be looking these up. I want you to answer these, so I am going to pause for you. Number one, explain how the concept of matching expenses with revenue relates to adjustments. An expense should be reported in the same fiscal period that it is used to produce revenue. So when we think about supplies, we want to record using those supplies during the same fiscal period that we actually use them. Same thing with prepaid insurance. Number two, list the 4 questions asked in analyzing an adjustment on a worksheet. First question that we should ask is, what is the balance of the account to be adjusted? 2, what should the balance be for this account? 3, what must be done to correct the account balance? And then 4, what adjustment is made? That is the end of the lecture. Now go to the 6-2 work together video.